Thank you. Welcome to the Board of Education of Frederick County Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting. This is November 8th. It is 10 a.m. and we are going to start the meeting. I understand that there is nobody present at this time for public comment.
That's correct.
So we'll move forward, and I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from October 11th meeting. We get a consensus to accept.
So there are no, staff do not vote on those types of things. It's only board members.
Oh, so it's me?
So it's
Okay.
you.
So it's me. I accept. That's a done deal. Okay. I have no board member comments at this time, so we can move into the agenda items.
Okay.
And I'm gonna, while the presentations are here, I'm gonna go off camera because I have it on my screen. So I'm
Okay.
using my screen
All right, absolutely.
to view. Okay.
Yep. So thank you and good morning. We have some updates around some of the work that we've been doing in middle schools. We had shared with the C&I committee and in past presentations about some changes that we were implementing at the middle school level, especially around our elective courses. And so Kathy Gall, Scott Murphy, and Tom Saunders are here to present an update to the C&I committee.
Okay, so I'm going to take the lead. Good morning again, Ms. Allen, and to our team for being here. These next two presentations, this first one about our middle school elective courses, and then secondly, we're going to follow with a second presentation about our middle school and high school course guide, kind of go hand in hand. And so some of what we're going to talk about in the first presentation is going to also appear in the second presentation. So I just wanted to give you that preview as we jump in. As Dr. Cuppett said, there has been a great deal of work underway for the last several years, but really has accelerated over the last year and a half to really sort of transform and open up access to our middle school elective programming. And so we're going to start by giving a bit of a recap of, and I'm moving to this next slide. I don't know if you can see when we go to the next slide. Okay. We're going to start just with a little bit of background and a recap of what is happening in this current year, some of the highlights and lessons learned from some of the changes that were made, and then propose next steps for the next school year, 24-25, and that's where it starts to connect to the course guide that we're getting ready to publish for next school year. I do want to start by thanking Mr. Saunders, who's really been side by side with our team throughout this effort, as well as our teachers who've really welcomed a lot of new things, as well as our team in the room, as well as our principals. It has been a team effort to bring about the planning and implementation of changes over the last year. So first, a little bit about why we made some of these changes. First of all is our focus on ensuring a well-rounded curriculum for middle school students, access to the arts, access to technology, starting to pursue areas of interest and keep them engaged in those middle school years. We also have COMAR requirements, specific requirements around the fine arts, specific requirements in computer science, in physical education and health that we also need to make sure that we're aligned to. And another big part of our compelling why is how we meet individual student needs. In many cases, students need interventions, additional help in reading or math. We also want to make sure that they have the opportunity to also select electives of interest to them. Again, we want to meet that interest and demand that students have. We want to expand access in our middle schools. And also part of this work is aligning to our high school pathways with Blueprint. So some of the changes in CTE, for example, are in direct alignment to how our pathways are evolving at the high school level. There were also input from board members, from stakeholders over multiple years to take a close look at middle school course offerings and schedule. So as a result, a summary of the changes that took place this past year and are in first year implementation now. Number one is semesterization of most of our middle school electives. In the past, it had typically been a requirement that most electives were offered for a full year. So for example, if a student wanted to take theater arts, in the past, it was a full year course and there was no opportunity to take it for a half year and match it with something else. And so that need brought about semesterization so that students could take a half a year of theater or a half a year of art, or a half year of art and a half year of computer science. The whole idea giving students up to 4 choices instead of just 2. And it also guaranteed electives for those students who did need interventions. We also this past year made changes to what is required versus optional in middle school. For example, there had not been a fine arts requirement in grade 6, although COMAR stipulates that we should be offering fine arts programming each year. There's also a computational thinking requirement also from the state, so that was added as a requirement, and some other traditional electives that had been in place for a long time, such as food science or Lab 21, were made optional instead of required, again, to give students choice in some of the courses they were taking. Another change that was made last year was a long-standing creative arts course was discontinued and replaced with a new course known as digital media arts. So this is just a summary. This next slide is just a summary of semester courses that had been in existence before last year. For examples: food science, Lab 21, creative arts, and invention and innovation. And then what is just an exponential growth you see in the right 2 columns of expansion of semester course offerings this past year. So some of the highlights from that was really a good thing. Not only did it open up access for students, provided more flexibility in master schedules, but it also brought about important work that we were able to do with curriculum development, with working with our teachers on kind of a revamp look at our elective programmings as well as professional learning that needed to happen. There was also a lot of lessons learned with our school-based master scheduling because it got more complicated. And we, again, want to acknowledge our schools, our counselors, our principals, our schedulers, and our teachers for the complex scheduling sort of lessons learned that happened, because it's really helping to drive our next steps. And we got really good feedback from students, from families, that we were able to meet student interest in new ways, particularly in some of the areas that they are most interested in, whether it's in technology or in fine arts or in world languages. And we grew everywhere this past year. In CTE, as an example, computer science enrollment district-wide is up by over 400 students. In fine arts, over 1,000 students selected that new media arts course I mentioned. Overall enrollment in fine arts and our band, choral, and orchestra ensembles in particular have shown growth across the board. This also speaks to what a good news story here, which is sort of a rising tide across the board by having semester course offerings, students being able to match it with their interests. It wasn't like growth went up in one area and fell off the cliff in another. We really saw enrollment and grow in each of these critical areas. In physical education and health, this did allow students who are enrolled in double interventions to also choose an elective. In previous years, students with needs for interventions in both reading and math often were not able to select an elective. This now changed that, as well as overall increases in world languages in middle school. So yeah, so that's our lessons learned. Our next slide here, we absolutely learned that expanded choice and access is good for kids. We've heard a lot of positive feedback from the community about being able to create these courses by semester and also develop the master schedule around it. We learned a lot about staffing and the master schedule. It's not perfect. We do have teachers teaching sometimes out of their content area or out of their comfort zone. We know that master schedule challenges with schools with different sizes can often be very challenging to staff according to the enrollment demand, but this is helping to drive improvements for next year. I think I just mentioned this, 3 bullets on that next slide. So what we're proposing for the next school year, which will become visible in the course guide for next school year, which is part of our next presentation, is to really build upon the learnings from this past year and stay the course. We're going to continue semesterization of virtually all of our elective courses to help with master scheduling. We're going to continue to focus on the COMAR areas and state emphasis areas of fine arts and computational thinking for a well-rounded curriculum, with a few examples of where courses really are best offered as a full year. So for example, in band and chorus, or in high school world languages that are offered in middle school, those are best offered as a full year because of the way the content builds from beginning to end. We also, and we'll share with you in the next presentation, new course names in CTE. Again, not only to align to high school pathways, but also to make sure that the course names describe what they actually are and help us advertising to students. This all is taking place in the context of a longer term plan. And so Mr. Saunders has been working on this effort for many years. So he's going to wrap us up with just kind of situating all of the above in a longer term view. Mr. Saunders?
Good morning, Ms. Allen. Good to be with you this morning and esteemed colleagues. So at the middle school level, one of the things that's a big driver right now is the blueprint. And we're trying to figure out how our current schedule will fit into the 60-40, which you're probably hearing a lot about. So over the next 2 to 3 years, we will be looking at whether the current 7-period schedule meets the needs of our students. And in fact, Mr. Vasquenza, principal of Windsor Knolls Middle School, and myself are co-chairing the blueprint group for the middle school level. And we've just started to get that group together. We had our first meeting in a week ago.
So, Mr. Saunders, could you briefly explain for the public that may be viewing the
Sure.
recording, what is that 60-40 requirement that you were sharing?
Yes, sounds good. So Maryland has adopted the blueprint for education, and part of that in the years to come, most teachers will fall into the category of being able to teach 60% of their day and 40% of their day having a variety of activities in which they participate in, like tutoring, collaborative planning, and individual planning. And so if you take our 7-period day, that would be 252 minutes of that day is 60%. And there's 168 minutes that is the 40%. And really the middle school schedule fits the 60%. The question becomes, how do we allocate the 40%? So that's the work we'll be working on. And like I said, we're always in middle school. Part of our love of schedules is just to make sure our current schedule is meeting the current needs of our students. And if you've been in middle school education long enough, there's a variety of schedules in which you can participate in. So that's the exciting part of the conversation we'll be having is, as we move into this next chapter of the blueprint, whether Mr. Murphy said it well, we're very excited about the opportunities that this change that we just presented to you make to the middle school schedule, and the increased participation in students of their interests is exciting, and the alignment to the high school. And Ms. Hirschman and I have been talking for many years about trying to recover the students who were lost in the performing arts, in particular during COVID. And that we really do feel like middle school is the place where we need to re-energize those kids who are instrument players, the folks that are singers, and getting those groups back together. And that's why those numbers are really exciting, the 18% growth, because we did see a downturn in participation in those performance groups, not only at the middle school, but the elementary level. And so that's an example of recovery that we're really actively and strategically looking at over the next 3 years to try to recover and expand those opportunities for our musicians. So that just gives you a little bit of the work that we're working on over the next 3 years. And so it's been a pleasure working with Mr. Murphy and Dr. Gall and the curriculum specialists and the middle school principals, in collaboration that I think is really paying dividends. And we haven't even experienced the full year yet. So the second semester of courses will be happening, and Mr. Murphy talked a little bit about teachers teaching out of content. That's not unusual for middle school. In middle school, in fact, a lot of times teachers do that. But as the years move on, in year 2 of this implementation, in year 3, I think principals will be working on making sure that the right people are teaching the right courses. And this year it was I think, mostly done, but I think in the future years, we'll be able to align that interest of teachers as well with the courses they're teaching. And that will be very exciting for us. So hopefully that covers what we're doing. And if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Yeah, this wraps up our presentation, Ms. Allen. Many of this conversation may be new, so we're ready for any and all questions you have.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So I was just wondering, I don't have a lot of questions. I took some notes here, so I may follow up with an email. But for the current electives, how are they communicated to students and parents? So are they making a selection at the beginning of the year for the 4 choices that they have? Or is it done, do they do some at the beginning of the year and then some, mid-semester or mid-year for the next, for the remainder of the school year?
Great question. Typically, it happens in a window in the middle of the year.
Okay.
Course registration for the following school year. So in a few minutes, we're going to start talking about the course guide that we publish, typically right around Thanksgiving, that really kicks off the course sign-up process for the next year. So all of these courses, for example, are listed in that course guide, but there's also a lot of local school publicizing, advertising that is associated with this course registration process that happens typically November, December, January, as schools start to build their master schedules for the following year. The other thing that we did last year is, because this was all so new, we centrally recorded a video, a screencast, that summarized all the changes and summarized for not only students and families, but for all of our counselors who help students register for courses. So we did have some centralized communication last year as well.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's it for me for this presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I wonder if I could get an assist with the next presentation. Thank you. Yeah, so as I said earlier, these 2 presentations sort of go hand in hand, as well as the third, actually, around world languages as part of well-rounded curriculum. But a lot of what I just shared with you in the last presentation will now surface publicly in our course guide for the 24-25 school year. There's a middle school course guide, and there's a high school course guide that is published every year that lists all the courses that students can elect to sign up for. As I said, this typically gets published around Thanksgiving, this time of year. And we also bring back to the board, the full board, any changes that are appearing in the course guide for the first time. So what we're going to share with you in this presentation is a summary of what will be new in the middle school course guide and then high school course guide for the 24-25 school year. First up is exactly what we just talked about, was additional semesterization of middle school electives to align with the vision that we just shared with you. The other thing that you'll see in the second document, the second backup document, is new names of CTE electives. For clarity of what the courses are, for pathway alignment to high school, and again, to help us advertise for students. So for example, there's been a long-standing course in 6th grade known as Lab 21. And oftentimes, parents and students ask, well, what does that mean? What it stood for was learning, apply, and build 21st century skills. But this year, we're changing it to STEM Innovators, just to give it kind of a more simple name that hopefully better explains what the content of the course is all about. So you'll see in your backup document a list of the new CTE course names to align to those high school pathways. The other thing that we're doing in the middle school course guide, and this begins to now be different than what was in the last presentation around electives, there are some other things in the academic areas that will be new in the course guides. First of all, we're going to change the name. We're proposing that we change the name of an intervention course from skills enrichment to math or algebra readiness, to rebrand the nature of that course and also destigmatize any perceptions that may be associated with it. You may be aware that we are also changing terminology. What had been our English learner program, system-wide, we are referring to it as our multilingual education program. So we're changing all the course names that had any EL or English learner associated with it to multilingual education program courses. In middle school, sort of the most significant update to the course guide is in mathematics. So we wanted to go a little bit deeper here in mathematics and share with you a proposal for future expansion of what is called math pathway opportunities. What this is opportunities for acceleration, math acceleration in grades 6, 7, and 8, culminating with the high school course geometry in 8th grade. Currently, these pathways for middle school math acceleration obviously start in grade 5 with before the transition to middle school, but then lay out options for students once they hit grade 6. So one pathway is students remain in grade level, honors grade level courses in grade 6 and 7, and then take a full year of the high school algebra course in grade 8. That is one of our current options. Another one of our current options is students begin some math acceleration in grade 5, and they begin to bridge into grade 6 content in 5th grade, and then are ready for a math 7, grade 7 course in grade 6, then a grade 8 course in grade 7, and currently those students who are ready for that level of acceleration take both algebra, high school geometry in 8th grade, currently only offered through the Frederick County Virtual School. And that's where we are proposing that we make some changes to open up more opportunities for math acceleration in middle school. Part of the compelling why behind this is students are ready for more in middle school, and this certainly provides these pathways provide other options towards being college and career ready, even as early as 7th or 8th grade. Our data does tell us that we have many students in every feeder area of the district who do show readiness for Algebra 1 in 7th grade. But when they get to 8th grade, in that current pathway, taking both algebra and geometry in 1 year can be a lot for a middle school student, and they're only offered virtually. With that current model, there are other opportunities to not only provide instruction in person, but to spread it out over multiple years instead of having algebra and geometry compacted into a single year. Again, we have data that shows us that we have students in every feeder that could be served in this model long term. This also provides on-ramps and off-ramps for students with math acceleration. Our vision and our belief is that a math pathway is never fixed, it's never rigid. There should and can be multiple entry points for students to go faster or go slower in mathematics, and this provides another avenue to do that. It also expands access for students who traditionally have been underrepresented in some of these accelerated courses, which builds on our grouping models in elementary school, which we can explain more about if you have questions. So our proposal for the future is that new updated proposed option for math acceleration. I say new or I say updated, but candidly, this is a math pendulum that swings back and forth and has been offered in the past, pre-Common Core, the way that these opportunities in math evolve over the years. But what we're proposing for next school year is that those students who show readiness in grade 5 have an opportunity for math grade 7 accelerated in grade 6. This will begin with students who enter grade 6 next year, and then as a cohort of students have the opportunity to access Algebra 1 in grade 7 and geometry in grade 8 in person in their local school with high school credits and CCR attached to it. So that is our math proposal. I'm guessing you may have questions about that, but I just have 2 more slides for high school that I'm just going to go ahead and finish the presentation, and then we can come back to this if you have questions. In the high school course guide, the changes are more technical in nature. The full board has previously approved new courses. You'll see the list there, such as women's history, such as AP Pre-Cal, and others that have already been approved by the board, now appearing in the course guide for the first time, and new half-credit electives. This half-credit electives, a 9-week course, this portfolio of options is continuing to grow, and these are full-year courses that have been adapted to make half-credit options. The only other thing for high school is similar to middle, updated name for an intervention course in mathematics, and changing all of our previous EL courses to multilingual education. So those are the updates that we propose will appear in the course guide. After we have this conversation, typically these proposals go to the full board for action and consent before we publish the course guide.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great presentation. I only have one question for right now. And I do appreciate this, under its slide 6, compelling why for additional options for math acceleration continuation. It was the second slide there. And the on and off ramps. Can you explain to me a little bit about that terminology? And I'll preface this with, my understanding would be is a student elects to take a course that may be too advanced for them. Once they get in there, then they need to maybe scale back either on the work or be moved to another option. Would that be correct?
100% correct. That on-ramp and off-ramp is sort of an educational term we tend to use, but it speaks to the flexibility and nimbleness and being fluid, and the idea that a student's path in mathematics is never fixed. And so, yes, absolutely, that is the goal. What we know is that students are ready for algebra at different times in their learning journey. For some students, that's 9th grade. For some students, that's 8th grade. For some students, that's 7th grade. And sometimes there's even outliers beyond that. But that timing of each individual student for algebra readiness is really, really important for their future success. And so this provides additional on-ramps or entry points for that.
Okay. Are there any assessments that are done at each of those grade levels in middle school that determine there may be an eligibility for that, or is it just really what the student is wishing to achieve, or, you know, if they feel that they're ready to do that?
It's both. As with anything that we do when we look at student readiness, it's multiple measures. So schools will look at multiple measures of assessment. We do give to all 2nd and 5th graders what's called the COGAT, or the Cognitive Abilities Test, that does surface students who may be gifted and talented or may be ready for more acceleration. But that's not the only measure that's used. Schools may use many other metrics, not only test scores, but other areas of potential that they see in students. So in the springtime, local schools would be reviewing all of that data to identify students who they believe have potential for these accelerated pathways, communicate with their parents, and plan for the following year. But once again, it's never fixed. And so if a parent, for example, really wants to explore this in more depth for their child, there's always the opportunity to do that. Mr. Saunders?
And I can just share that, part of the accelerated learning process, Mrs. Allen, I'm sure you've heard about, is that teachers collaborate, especially arising 6th graders in the first term. They're doing a lot of looking at their students to make sure that they're placed appropriately. And as students are hopefully sharing their talents and showing great potential, kids could be moved up. For those kids who may be struggling in the current placement, there's opportunities for tutoring We don't want to move them just to move them. And then after support, if they still, and with the collaboration with parent, they think we need to move them to a different level, that's the off-ramp in which we can provide that opportunity for students. But like I said, we're not rushing to move kids out. We're really trying to provide supports where they are and talent spot and get them to the right place that they need to be. And that's what our sixth grade teacher, well, all teachers in middle school are, but especially our sixth grade teachers, just making sure that the kids coming in, or as you know, we're growing as a county. So as kids come to us from other places, that talent spotting is also really critically important through the accelerated learning process.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Very thorough answer. That's it for me.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Allen.
I wanted to thank Mr. Murphy and Mr. Saunders for handling the questions today. I do want to reiterate what Scott said. Dr. Gall, our curriculum team, school-based folks who have all worked to put these exciting changes in place as we move towards the goals of the blueprint. So we're going to switch gears, and I'm going to introduce Dr. Cash. Dr. Cash is our curriculum specialist for world languages, and he's here to do one of those annual updates related to our world languages program. So I'm going to turn it over to him. Welcome, Dr. Cash.
Thank you, Dr. Glover. Good morning. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you, thank you. So I'll break with tradition and speak in English for just a few moments.
That's appreciated.
Thank you for the opportunity again to speak with you and to my colleagues at the highest level of erudition. Good morning. It's,
Do right click.
that's what's
Or left
happening.
click, left click.
You got it.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
This is my first slide. Okay.
Yep.
So our course offerings are still centered in 4 languages: ASL, American Sign Language, French, Latin, and Spanish. And here I have listed the schools that offer the same, to include as well the Spanish for bilingual speakers, also known as the Spanish for heritage speakers course. In the middle school, we have 3 of the 4 no American Sign Languages happening, and with the predominant enrollment happening in Spanish 1 and 2. Of course, 2 levels being offered for high school credit, as well as a middle school exploratory class that may be taken once in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, now as a year-long course or as a semester course. The benchmark assessments that we've had in place, typically 4 per year in levels 1 and 2, are in place for the current year, temporarily suspended through the pandemic. And so we will begin to utilize at all levels integrated performance assessments, which will be a cluster of assessments primarily addressing the 3 modes of communication, as opposed to just the units that a student has covered in a class, to move toward the performance and proficiency, as opposed to just what students have covered in the class. Our American Sign Language teachers continue to meet monthly, and in some cases bi-monthly, that is 2 times a month, because many of them are solo at their schools, and so they collaborate virtually through Google Meet in a process that's very similar to what happens in the accelerated learning process in middle school, to review and share a number of things. Been fortunate to be a part of those conversations as well, and again, I think the instruction is definitely moving forward in that direction for our ASL teachers. Select Spanish instructors as well have created some resources that we share with the county via our Schoology platform, our elements there, and they collaborate informally, but not as frequently as the ASL instructors. The new hires have the monthly opportunity to meet with Sarah Brown, who is the master teacher at Windsor Knolls Middle School, as far as ongoing professional learning. Some of that is dictated by concepts that we have devised for such times, and others are simply walk-ins, and students, teachers, not students, teachers are dealing with issues in real time that they are facing or with which they're having challenges with their students. The remaining Latin instructors also participate in ongoing monthly sessions of collaboration similar to the ASL instructors. Our Maryland Seal of Biliteracy, which is a hallmark distinction for students who have demonstrated proficiency in English and at least one other language. What is noteworthy to mention here is Dr. Gold has taken the lead in getting Dr. Moore, the multilingual education supervisor, and me together. We're going to look at not only students who are learning a second language, but students who come to us with heritage languages as well, because the seal does not require that a person sit in a class in order to take an assessment and recognize that distinction. It is also noteworthy to mention that as recently as last week, UMBC is the first college in Maryland that is now beginning to say that they will probably take the seal of biliteracy in lieu of some of the placement tests for credits at 101 and 102. So we're hopeful that that's going to come to fruition. And our second bullet here talks about the number of seals that we awarded last school year, whereas this is commendable, 141. Certainly, once Dr. Moore and I work, we think we will be able to increase that number significantly. And you see the languages that are listed there. We continue to have some dual enrollment options. Initially, Brunswick High and Frederick High they were initially targeted for reasons of transportation, just accessibility for students who otherwise might not have that opportunity, hoping that we can create a pipeline for students who would be interested in FCC or otherwise in some other institution of higher education. So Ms. Song and I continue to work together on that. And again, we have the numbers here for what that enrollment status was last year, and those classes are continuing to happen very successfully. We were able to reinstate the exploratory camp for summer students, for students in the summer in the elementary grades. So I want to publicly thank Dr. Coven for his unwavering, continual support in that regard. We are already planning for next year's camp. We have students that participated in American Sign Language, French, German, Italian, Spanish, and Russian, as well as a Spanish immersion camp that had a slice of Latin, where students can learn the derivatives of the Spanish language that they were learning in the Spanish immersion class. And both of those ended with closing ceremony for parents and other persons in the community to come and witness. Addressing the Spanish immersion camp, which I've already spoken. And this speaks to the representation from the various elementary schools. Students came, and the community property grant that funded some of the registrations. Coming for the next year for summer 2024, at a location to be determined, and so we will continue this rich experience for our younger scholars. I think that concludes my presentation, and I'll pause now for any questions, comments, or concerns.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. I don't really have a question, but I have a comment. I am a little bit surprised by the number of students who are interested in taking Latin. And I guess my question is, I feel that this is good, but I would like to hear your perspective on maybe what is generating that interest. Is it just the fact that it's something that maybe they haven't experienced before, or are the students that are enrolled in Latin there for specific reasons, such as they have aspirations in law or, something where Latin might be very useful, or medical professions. Yeah.
So, Ms. Ellen, I would say a number of things. One most notable factor has been that in talking with those students, they have indicated that they have a reluctance or some degree of apprehension of communicating in a language other than English in the traditional fashion.
Hmm.
And so Latin allows them to kind of lower the affective filter, the pressure, although arguably it's more complex to talk about all of the conjugations and derivations in Latin than it would be in the traditional Romance language. Those students feel not having the vocal piece or the oral piece helps them to thrive a bit more. I would be remiss if I did not comment as well on the teachers who are teaching that class. And I think they could teach a course in basket weaving, and those students would sign up as well because they are very, very deliberate and intentional in working with students before school, doing class after school. You may or may not be aware that at some point Frederick County had the highest Latin enrollment in the state of Maryland for many years. And again, I attribute that directly to the students wanting a different kind of experience, as well as the persons who were teaching those classes. One at TJ High, for example, who was there for 40 plus years teaching Latin and had a full schedule every year. I would say that the lower tier, meaning smaller numbers of students, have expressed that they have aspirations in medicine or law. They may have, but that is not what we're hearing as the driving forces behind Latin enrollment.
Thank you. That was great. No, I did not know that Frederick County was a leader in that particular language. So that's interesting. Thank you. I appreciate it. Great information.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cash. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoy your day. You slide that down. I'll take care of that. All right, so that is all of the presentations that we have today, Ms. Allen. We do normally just look at schedule to give you a preview on December 6th as part of our continued work in well-rounded curriculum. We'll have visual performing arts updates and health and physical education updates.
Okay, great. Look forward to it.
At this time, we have no additional items. If you'd like to close the meeting, the honor is all yours.
All righty. I will close the meeting, and it is 10:43 a.m. And another big thank you to everybody for your presentations.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
Thanks. You too.